Hello, welcome to this short tutorial for Backdrop. Backdrop is a precision layout tool for putting together pre-existing images into wallpaper arrangements for multi-monitor systems. You can find it at SourceForge. It's available at the direct link backdrop.sourceforge.io, or if you go to sourceforge.net and search for Backdrop, it will come up. The program only has a few operations, so it's pretty simple to use. The reason it came about was to help with laying out custom wallpapers for a system like what you see here. So as you can see, there's 3 different monitors, 2 different sizes, and depending on your operating system, it may be easy or hard to put custom arrangements on these various monitors, especially if you want something that spans across multiple monitors. So Backdrop simplifies the task of putting those images, multiple images together into one large wallpaper that then can be used to span all the monitors in a custom layout. When you set out to put together your layout, first thing you want to do is verify how your monitors are laid out. You can check in your system settings. As you can see here, this would be the TV. It's a 1920 by 1080. This is the smaller monitor on the desktop. That's a 1440 by 900. And the larger monitor on the desktop, another 1920 by 1080. And they're laid out here, left to right, pretty much how they appear. So, if you have your monitor set up and you know what the resolutions are, you hit print screen, you'll get onto your clipboard an image of all the desktops and how they're laid out. And this can vary depending on your system and how you've laid out. If you have them arranged in a more complex pattern, it may not always look like this, but you can see how in this case you've got the TV over here, and then the smaller monitor and the larger monitor, and then this area here is just left blank, not used by the operating system. One little trick you can use if you've got various monitors, maybe they're all the same size, or maybe depending on what you've got on the desktop currently for your wallpaper, if you drag just a couple icons onto the different screens, sometimes that can help clarify where they fall if they're not laying out as obviously as this matches up with what the desktop setup looks like. So once you know what you need the layout to look like, you can fire up Backdrop. It'll look like this. And the first step is to create your monitor layout. So in this case, monitor 1 on the left, we'll say is the HD TV, and then the next monitor, the smaller one on the desktop, put in its resolution, and we get monitor number 2's box there, and then we put in for monitor number 3 another HD. So now we have these 3 different desktop layouts, and you can click and drag just by grabbing the border. One thing to keep in mind is that these do snap together at the corners, and when they snap together I can no longer grab it and move it unless I hold down the Alt key. And in that case, when I'm holding down Alt, I let it go, I can control it, and then it will snap together again until I push Alt. If I'm holding down Alt, I can drag it around there and it won't snap. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So if I want to lay these out, how they appear, so you can see these were snapped at the bottom basically. And now I've got my layout. So it's pretty straightforward. And then the next step is just to bring in your images and put them how you want them. You can have up to 6 images. They can be overlapping. You can leave blank spaces. That will just be black in the final image if you don't put anything there. One thing I was going to point out is once you lay these out, you get this overall size. That's the resolution of the overall wallpaper you're going to create, 5280 by 1080. If we open up that, you can see in Paint here, it's giving me the overall size of the monitor, or of the wallpaper that I created by hitting print screen. So you can see this is the layout. Over here is the monitor with the taskbar, and then the smaller monitor and the TV. 5280 by 1080. Just make sure that when you've done your layout in Backdrop, it's the same, and in this case it is. You can see 5280 by 1080. So I'm going to create an image. When I hit this Save Wallpaper button, it's going to create an image that size, and that's what will work for my desktop. So let's bring in some images. First of all, we bring in, let's see, we'll drop in the TV wallpaper here to go on the TV. And again, when you're dragging images, they snap into place. They snap at the top left or bottom right corners. So when it's snapped, I can't move it around, but then if I hold down the Alt key, I can release the snap. And you can see it won't, it's not snapping to this corner here. I'm not holding down Alt, it's just because it doesn't snap to the bottom left or top right. But then if I snap it there, now it's snapped at this corner, and I hold down Alt again to release it. So I'll put that back in the TV slot. I've got a smaller wallpaper here that'll go on the small monitor. And finally, we'll drop a Fortnite wallpaper over here on the right desktop. So now I've created this layout, and if I hit Save Wallpaper, I'll bring up my dialog, and I can say save it as any of those formats. So I'll save that as a JPEG, and if I go open up those pictures, you can see here's my 3-span layout. If I open that up, you can see now it saved it with in the same format that print screen output gave me. And of course this is a full size, it's just scaled by the image viewer. So once I've got the layout, if I want to create multiple versions of my wallpaper, I don't need to redo the layout again. I can go ahead and just click Clear Images after I've saved the wallpaper, and it's ready for another set of images. So in this time, let's see, we'll grab, select that TV wallpaper, drop that back over here, but now I want to do something a little different. With these monitors, since they're next to each other on the desktop, I want to add something that spans across both of them. So I've got this wider image here, and you can see I can drop this into place. Part of it will get cropped out, but it does go across the two monitors. You can see though that I now have got this overlapping on my TV too, and the way to fix that is if I just click on an image, it'll bring it to the front. So when I'm laying them out, make sure that if there's some overlap, that I click on the image I want on top, and that will set it. And if I save this now, I'll call it a 1-2 span layout. Save that, and if I go back over now, again I've got, now even though that was outside of the border of that middle monitor there, I'd still get that image. A piece of the image doesn't get cropped out necessarily, because the backdrop will create an image of the whole rectangle essentially for the whole extent of where your monitors are laid out. So one more thing we can try here, if we clear these images, and I've got one triple monitor layout that's a little taller than what I've got because it's made for 1200 height, so I could drop it like this. It doesn't quite center how I might want, because it does span off the screen both ways. So one other feature you can do is you can scale your image. So in this case, if I scale it, I could scale it down to be 1080, but now as you can see, it leaves me some space over here that will be left black. So the better option in this case is to scale it to match the width of my overall wallpaper, which is 5280 in this case. So I'll change this to 5280, and now I've got something that spans all the way across. And as long as I drag it and make sure that it's snapping, that ensures that I don't have any black borders around the sides of the top. It's going to stretch all the way to the edges of all my monitors without leaving any extra. So if I go ahead and save that, it'll look pretty much like it does now, but it's now been scaled, and I've been able to adjust it so that it lays out how I want it on the monitors. And one thing to keep in mind is you could do this, and then as you can see, I've got these blurry ones. Maybe I'd want to put something on top of that to kind of highlight it, so I could get this and scale it down to maybe 1000. Drop that in the middle there, and that will save just like that on that monitor. Same thing on the other one over here. Take this one, drop it just like that, or adjust the height somewhat. So if I do that, drop it where I want it. And you can see this went away because I clicked on that back one there. Only way to get that back right now is I'm going to have to grab this and and pull these off for a sec while I drop this back into place, and then bring these back on top. And we could save that. So one other thing to keep in mind when you're laying out a monitor or a layout or a wallpaper sometimes is you might need a little help with guiding where you want things to go. If we bring back this arch here and we were to say, well, we want to drop this here like so. See, there's nowhere for this to snap to because the bottom right corner is off the screen and the top left one is not inside of a monitor. There's nothing there. So you can use, if you're not using all four monitors, one option you have is you can use this to create sort of a guide. So in this case I'll create a little guide here, and as long as the guide doesn't extend beyond the limits of my current wallpaper, it doesn't add anything to the overall size, but I can use those guide. Or alternatively, if I had something that I wanted to lay out that went outside, I could make this taller, and gotta release the snap and drop it there, and then I could bring this up, snap it where I wanted it, and then once it's there I can grab this and drag it back inside the limits of, so you can see 5280 by 1080 is still the right size wallpaper. If I drop this back up there, it does make it 1260, so it's going to affect the overall size of the wallpaper. So just something to keep in mind, but that's a good, comes in handy sometimes when you need a guide to make sure that your image is going to fall right on the edge of what you're looking at, so you don't have it leaving some black border around the edges. Anyway, that's the quick tip on how to use Backdrop, and hopefully you'll find it useful. There's a walkthrough on the SourceForge wiki for Backdrop that also kind of steps through this process, and you can always post a question on there if you run into something that doesn't work like you'd expect. Alright, thanks for watching.